Hi and welcome to this tutorial where we're gonna build an FAQ bot using Narratory. And FAQ, frequently asked questions, is perhaps the most common use case of chatbots today, basically to be able to answer questions from the user. And even if Narratory is capable of building much more advanced bots that can, for example, take orders or generate leads or even build games and other types of experiences, having answers to questions that the users might ask is something that most chatbot has anyway. So this will be a good tutorial for you to go through. And I've created a bot here already using the empty template, so starting from scratch, but then I pre-built this. I just added a greeting bot initiative here that says hi to the user. I've also added a few pre-populated questions that I will walk through later just to save some time. And we will start now by creating our second bot initiative, and we will call it query questions. We will keep this bot turn as a request because we want to ask the user, do you have any questions for me? All right, and so here we will start by providing some users might actually parse this as a yes or no question, so we need to factor in that as well. So if the user says yes, what we're going to do is we're going to stay in this turn by changing this bot answer here, this bot turn, to a repair type. And the repair, what it does is that it will reply something to the user, but it will not move on to the next step in the narrative. So the reply here will be, great, what is your question? And if the user says no, then we're also going to use a repair, and we're going to say, okay, let me know if you change your mind. And the reason why we're not moving on here to perhaps an end state is that we will want to keep this chat open in case the user comes back at a later point and asks a question. So a more of an open-ended bot. And now, instead of adding a lot of questions here, and a bot could easily answer hundreds of questions, thousands even, that would create a structure that is quite hard to grasp. And if we imagine this being a bigger bot, you might want to have these questions available no matter where you are in the dialogue. So typically adding questions from the user that aren't really specific to the context that you are in can be done by adding them as user initiatives, as we did in the first tutorial. So I will start by adding a new user initiative here called Who Are You? And here, instead of using intents, you can also see that I pre-built a yes and a no intent here that we are already using. But instead of using an intent here, we will use an example right away, and we will add who are you, and we will also, someone might ask what is your name, someone else might say, are you a bot, which we could handle the same way. And the answer here would be, I am a bot, and my mission is to answer your questions. Something like that. Okay. And here you can see that I've pre-populated a few other questions, since they are essentially identical in the structure, except that I didn't finish this one. So can I talk to a human? Talk to a human. Here you could do a handover to a human if you're using a live chat system, which Narratory currently does not have. But in this case, for the demo, we will simply say, in the future I might, but for now I'll try my best to help you. And this might seem cumbersome to add one of these for every question that you want to answer, but one of the benefits of doing this is to, if you want to extend an answer to not just answer right away, but to ask a return, a follow-up question, it's very easy to do so. So for example, on this question here, what's your returns policy, which I haven't added an example for here, so let's do that. What is your returns policy? Maybe what about returns? Another formulation here. In this case, well, we might have different return policy for different products. In the case of us selling blue and red pills, we happen to have different return policies, and so this question is crucial then to give the right answer. We're simply asking, do you mean for blue or for red pills? And then depending on what the user answers, we return different responses. So this is something that is very easy to build if you're using this structure to create your questions and answers. You could also imagine using a Google Sheet, and we will support that in the near future. So now that we have 5 of these questions, we can also move them here around, and these groups are up to you to call whatever you want. For example, you could have queries here, and then it's just a tool for you to structure your bot a bit better. And so now that we have these, we can head back to our narrative, and if you remember from the first tutorial, the user initiatives are always active no matter where you are in the dialog. So when we are in this state, on this turn, then you will be able to ask any of the questions that you have added as user initiatives here. And we might also here want to add a fallback, something we didn't do in the first tutorial. So we can, instead of using these other 2 blocks we use the anything block, which basically catches anything that doesn't already classify to one of the intents that you have. And in this case, it's going to catch everything that isn't a yes, a no, or that maps to any of the user initiatives that you have. If the user then says something that the bot doesn't understand, the bot should perhaps say, I didn't get that, sorry. Wanna try a different question. Like that. And again, we're using a repair here because we want to stay in this state. And it's especially important since we don't have an end state here. We might, if we want, we could also add, some users might say goodbye, and we might want to handle that as well. So let's do that. Let's add an example here saying bye and goodbye as well. And here we can just say goodbye, but we're still using a repair, sorry, here, and that means that even if we say goodbye, we're still staying in this turn. So if the user asks a question, comes back and asks a question, we will still be able to answer that. We will not end the session. All right, so now I think we are ready to build the bot and try to see if it does what it should do. So let's start a new session with it, and we can start by trying our yes and no answers here. So we will say yes, and it will then stay in this state, and if you say no, it will say this response here, right? If we say just some gibberish, then the fallback will be triggered, if we say bye, the bot will say goodbye. But now if we ask it, who are you? We see that we get an answer here. And then it asks this question again, do you have any questions for me? And this might not be an ideal user experience. What we could do is we could simply answer this and then leave the turn over to the user. But an even better user experience might be to add a different response here, something like, do you wonder anything else? And we only wanna say this first one, do you have any questions for me, the first time that we come to this bot turn. So every time that we return here, we want to instead say something like, do you wonder anything else, or do you have any other question for me? And to do that, we are going to introduce a new concept here. We're going to use the same block that we used in the first tutorial called the rich say, which allows you to add different fields to your text. And here we're going to use a condition or a cond here, and this, and then we're gonna remove that one. We will put this in here, and we will go to the logic category here, and we will take this block, which has 3 fields. It has a variable dropdown, it has another dropdown for what operation do you want to check, and then it has an empty input here. So we're going to drag this into the cond field here, and then we're gonna want to see, so here you can see the variables that are available currently in your bot. So these are all defined by the platform, by Narratory. So you have things like a bot text, which was the last thing the bot said. We have user text, which similarly is what the user said last. But you also have something called turn count, which is, as it sounds, the amount of times that you have been in this particular turn. So when turn count is equal to, so we're going to drag out another block here and say 0, then we are going to ask this question, do you have any questions for me? But if this condition is false, which it will be the second time it comes in here, so, oh, and by the way, yeah, this the indexing here starts at 0, so the first time it comes here, it will actually have, the turn count will be 0. If you're new to any kind of programming, then this might be new to you, but this is a common practice if you're working with any kind of development. So the second time, then the turn count variable will be set to 1. If you stay in this turn again, like we did over here, we had turn count 0 here, and then we had turn count 1, and turn count 2, and turn count 3. So as long as this variable turn count is not 0, then we're gonna say this other formulation here, do you wonder anything else? And since we are expecting to stay here and to repeat this many times, here is a very good case for using a bunch of different variations, because that will make the experience a lot better. So for example, you can add, do you have other questions? Or just any other questions for me? So let's try this and see if this is perhaps a better experience. So now we see that the first time we got here, we got this, do you have any questions for me? We can then ask, what is the price? which we didn't really get, and that's probably because I was too lazy when I added this. I only added what does it cost, so of course it doesn't understand that yet. So we ask that instead, and we see that here we got the answer, and then it says any other questions for me. And this, I hope you agree with me that this is a better user experience here, to simply have this change as well. So if we say what is the returns policy, then remember we had this follow-up question here, and here if we say red, we will get the answer for red, and then do you wonder anything else? And if we now say no, we will simply get the answer, do you know, let me know if you change your mind. So this is a simple but quite strong foundation of how to build a bot that focuses on answering questions from users. So that's all for this tutorial. I hope you like it. If you have any questions or feedback on this tutorial or on the product in general, you're super welcome to get in touch with us on email, or if you want to join our Slack community, that's probably where you get the quickest answers. So please check in on our website to get in touch.